Hello. So this is the start of my Tuesday evening lockdown session. Um, Not quite sure what I'm going to do when the lockdown finishes. I may continue giving these sessions. They seem to have been popular and seem to be very helpful for people. Um, um, so what I said I was going to talk about this evening is reproductive system problems. I've just been seeing people online and teaching about this quite a bit in the last few weeks, so it feels very up for me. And it made me think about why are reproductive systems so common in modern society. So, for example, breast cancer, now something like 1 in 8 in the UK, in modern Western society, something like 1 in 8, 1 in 9 women will develop breast cancer during their lifetime. This is a big increase. In Western medicine, they would say this is partly because people are living older and cancers happen more in older people, which is true, but I think that's not the only reason. The level of different illnesses, including cancers, in different parts of the world varies greatly. Breast cancer is much higher in modern Western countries and is much lower in some countries which traditionally eat a plant-based diet, and particularly a plant-based dairy-free diet. So rather than 1 in 8, rates maybe 1 in 50, 1 in 80, or even 1 in 100. So that is very different. I seem to have been seeing a lot of men recently with prostate problems. The most common is prostate enlargement, and the prostate is around the urethra, which is carrying urine from the bladder to the outside. And when it enlarges, then it becomes difficult to pee, and then the urine gets backed up. That can damage the bladder. It can create kidney infections, and can be very inconvenient because one has an urgency to pee, and yet one can only pee a very small amount. So it can really be quite serious, and just can be treated with drugs particularly ones which suppress testosterone, which can help the prostate to shrink a bit. If that isn't enough, then the procedures usually have a resection where a very fine instrument is put up the penis and up the urethra, and little bites are taken out of, or in some way part of the prostate is destroyed. So not a great process to go through. So also prostate cancer. Just in the news in the last week, prostate cancer has become the most common cancer in the UK. So particularly as lung cancer has dropped because of less people smoking, which was the number one. So now prostate cancer is the cancer which is the most common cancer, above breast cancer. And 25% of cancers in men are of the prostate. So we need to learn how to look after our reproductive organs, our prostates, our ovaries, our uterus, our breasts, our cervix, etc. So I was reflecting on, why is it that in modern society these problems are so common? Illnesses are caused by a wide variety of different causes. It can be our food, our activity, our emotions, our lifestyle, the environment, stress levels, etc. Illness, disease is complicated in many ways. There's kind of multiple causes. So having studied macrobiotics for 40 years, I study, as widely, the causes as widely as possible, the emotional, spiritual, lifestyle, etc. causes. And in macrobiotics, we have a very good understanding of the food and drink causes of various health problems. And I think the reason why these problems becomes so common. Really the same reason in some ways as heart disease becoming so common. 100 years ago in Europe, heart disease was quite a rare illness. Now it's still the biggest killer of men and women. And it's really the same cause, and that is eating excess. It's eating more fats, proteins, sugars, etc. than our body really needs. When we eat excess fats, then more than our body can use, these get laid down in the body. I think processed fats, it's not only the amount of fat, it's also eating processed fats. So many of you may know about trans fats. In order to make oils or fats last longer, they're hydrogenated, they have hydrogen added to them, and they're made into trans fats, which are difficult for the body to metabolize. And so these cause much more health problems. So things like all of that healthy margarine, which people ate for years and years because it had less fat in than butter, was more highly processed and had a lot of trans fats in. Also, if we're eating a lot of bought cakes, biscuits, and those kind of things, often they have trans fats in, because trans fats have a longer shelf life than simple plant oils. So if we're eating excess fats, they get laid down in the body. They cause accumulations in the body, whether that is lumps under the skin, just have to get rid of something there. Whether they create mucus from the lungs, whether they cause breast lumps, gallstones, kidney stones, cysts, ovarian cysts, polyps, fibroids, all and to some extent, and certain cancers. All of these come from excess in the body. So excess fats, also excess sugars, because if we're eating excess sugar, then the liver converts that into fats. Possibly excess proteins as well, because eating too much protein, people think it's great, we need protein. Actually, our protein needs are relatively small. We don't need to eat a 14-ounce steak in order to get enough protein. We can eat beans and grains and maybe a bit of fish or egg or other animal food and really have plenty of protein. Also, a lot of chemicals in foods. Also, the body doesn't know how to metabolize, so they can also accumulate in the body fat and in other places. So this accumulation in the body creates a lot of problems in the reproductive organs. I think another reason for this is that a lot of the reproductive organs are functionally, and you could say energetically, are to accumulate and hold on, so to material and also energetically. So, for example, the breasts. If a woman is producing breast milk, then that needs a lot of energy and nutrients to come into the breasts and be held there, ready for breastfeeding or the expression of the milk. So this is, the breasts want to hold on to, if there's fats and sugars and other things in the bloodstream, it wants to hold on to these, and this can also make the breasts larger. And I was talking about this with a group the other day, and several women noticed that when they're eating more dairy foods and sugary sweet foods, their breasts become larger, and when they eat much more of a plant-based diet, then their breasts get slightly smaller. So same things with the uterus. The uterus is function of the uterus is to possibly hold a fertilized egg and grow an embryo and grow a child, grow a fetus and a child. So it also wants to draw lots of nutrients from the woman's body into the uterus to nourish this possible life. And to some extent the same with the ovaries. The ovaries are holding hundreds and hundreds of eggs, they need to hold on. There needs to be a lot of energy and in those ovaries. So they also draw things to them. I was looking at some photographs. You can find photographs of almost anything these days on Google. I was looking at some photographs of ovarian cysts, and some of them can become really quite large, and there were some that were kind of egg-shaped, and it's almost as if functionally the woman's body is wanting to create life in that in that region of the body, and it creates things. And if there's excess in the body, then it will create it'll create something. Certain ovarian cysts are more fluid-filled. Sometimes they're multiple cysts called polycystic ovaries or ovary syndrome, and sometimes they're dermatoid cysts. They're hard cysts, and they're actually, inside of them, if they're removed and then cut open, they're hairs and even things resembling bones and teeth inside those dermatoid cysts. It's almost as if the body's trying to create life there. So in men, the same thing. Same thing with the prostate. The prostate accumulates fluids and certain chemicals. So when a man ejaculates, then that fluid is added to the sperm, and that's what carries the sperm. That's the fluid that the sperm are living in and swimming in, etc. So prostates, and also energetically, prostates hold a lot of energy. So energetically, if one's studying chakras and the body energy system, then the uterus is very central in women. In good health, then that's a real energy center. The same in men. The prostate holds a lot of energy. This is where we hold a lot of our, not only our reproductive power, but a lot of our personal power as well. And just mentioning that, one of the things that can really cause problems in the uterus and the prostate on the emotional level are issues around disempowerment. If we've been disempowered by being squashed, by having our will taken away from us or repressed, there's maybe a better expression, when we were children or young or even as an adult, then energy doesn't flow through that place. If we're standing in our power, our will, we're clear about what we want to do in life, then energy flows through the uterus and through the prostate, which is a healthy situation. If our power has become frozen, then the energy flow in that place also freezes. And when the energy is not flowing, then blood doesn't flow so well, lymph doesn't flow so well, and things can accumulate. So this is why I think when we eat excess fats, sugars, proteins, refined carbohydrates, refined flour, white flour breads, pastries, biscuits, etc., cakes. This is one reason why I think a lot of this accumulates in the reproductive organs. Not quite sure who invented cakes. I think probably originally they were probably rather healthy. These days most cakes are about 1/3 refined flour, 1/3 sugar and sweeteners, and 1/3 oil, with a few little extras to kind of flavour them. Really such an unhealthy food. If you want to learn how to make healthy cakes and healthy desserts, then please check out our cooking classes here. So many of these female and male reproductive system problems happen because of this accumulation. Because the Western diet has come to really contain really great excess of fats, refined carbohydrates, sugar, etc., far more than the body can use, and therefore, because it's not used, it accumulates in these places. So I think this is definitely true of fibroids, definitely true of ovarian cysts, definitely true of enlarged prostate, definitely true of breast cysts, and also the same, a slightly different process going on, but one way of understanding why tumours, growths, including cancers, form is that, again, accumulation in different parts of the body, so that accumulations of, you could say, almost kind of non-human fats or other materials, and then the cells stop behaving as human cells. They degrade, they become more like bacterial cells, and all they want to do is reproduce. The body loses control over them, and they just want to reproduce. They're like a more primitive kind of cell. The more primitive they become, the more dangerous they become in terms of cancer, because all they want to do is reproduce. Life always wants to reproduce and grow. That's the nature of life. And these cells are out, lose communication with the rest of the body, and then they just want to reproduce, and then the cancer grows, and then it starts creating problems. So if we want to counteract reproductive system problems, lumps, tumours, cancers, what we need is to not eat excess. And if we've accumulated excess, as most people who've eaten a typical Western diet have, then we want to gradually, over time, cleanse the body. I don't really go for fasting and very sudden cleansing. Liver cleanses and so on, great to just do it day by day through eating a healthy plant-based diet, a lot of whole foods, not overdoing using some oil, using some seeds, using a few nuts, but not overdoing deep fried foods and very fat, very oily foods, and not eating too many nut butters and peanut butter, and not eating too much refined carbohydrates, sticking more to whole plants, whole beans, whole grains, whole seeds, some fruits, some sea vegetables, maybe a little fish, and maybe a little bit of animal food. But if one's really eating a lot of animal food, maybe no animal food for a while, so the body is really encouraged to cleanse. Plus, I think exercise also really helps discharge, because then we're using up, the body becomes hungry for certain nutrients. It needs those stores of fat, for example. So it takes them out into the blood so they can be used for energy. So I think really a good amount of exercise also is very helpful to discharge. If we're holding on to a lot of emotions and a lot of kind of negative emotions or beliefs, then also getting rid of those, because if we're holding on to a lot of anger, sadness, pain, whatever it is, that also makes our energy stagnate. And that also can lead on to accumulation in the body. Stretching the body is great. That really helps the ki to move, the chi to move, and helps break down these accumulations. So I've seen people with enlarged prostates shrink them. I've seen women who have recurrent breast cysts get rid of that condition. To some extent, too frequent or too heavy periods comes from a kind of similar thing. I've seen many women get rid of those symptoms and have a more normal cycle and relatively painless and trouble-free menstruation. I've seen people heal themselves of endometriosis. It tends to take quite a while, very often, quite a deep problem in the body. Polycystic ovaries, some ovarian cysts, some of the hard ones are really tough to get rid of, but it's really often possible to get an improvement in these health conditions through a cleansing diet, activity, maybe some specific emotional work as well, is what I've seen. Okay, really we shouldn't, I remember reading this statistic in America, 1/3 of women end up having hysterectomies, and it's just like, how crazy is that? What are we doing that 1/3 of women need to have their wombs taken out? So instead of taking the wombs out, what we need to do collectively is look at how do we look after wombs? How do we look after our reproductive organs? How can we avoid getting to the point of having excessively heavy periods or fibroids or other problems in that area that then necessitates hysterectomy. Okay, so I'm going to finish talking about that subject and have a look at see what questions have come in. So, hi Dave, and good to have you here, and Amal and Marianne again, and Crystal is asking, do I have advice on endometrium polyps in the uterus? Any remedy drink to reduce this? Kuzu drink, as it's related to the uterus mucus, I guess. It's for my niece, 25 years, small polyps. She will start fasting first. Well, I think the first thing is, kind of using a more dietary approach would be to go through and see what foods your niece might be eating, which are going to cause which are excess to what the body needs. Are there some dairy foods there? Are there refined foods there? Are there kind of baked sweet foods? In macrobiotics, in yin-yang terms, when we eat more yin foods, lighter foods which have more expansive energies, such as tea, coffee, alcohol, sugar, that the effect of those tends to go up more in the body, to the breasts, lungs, face, sinuses. When we eat more heavy, dense foods, we'd call more yang foods, such as meat, cheese, baked sweet foods, which have fats in, baked floury products. Those kind of heavy foods, they tend to go more down and create excess more downwards in the body. So I think before you start thinking about remedies, I think the first thing to do is look at what is the cause with her. Is she eating a fair amount of those kind of foods? So if she is, then the first thing to do is to stop eating those and go on to a more, what you might call, clean whole foods diet. You could also look and see whether you feel that energy is flowing through that part of her body. If you studied, I think you studied some Oriental diagnosis or Oriental health reading. When you look at the body, one of the things we look for is where is the energy moving in the body and where is it not moving. And sometimes you can get a sense of this from people's posture, and sometimes you just get a sense from where looks alive and where looks dead. And if there's a feeling of not a lot of energy moving through that part of the body, then it'd be really good to explore that. Is there something happening emotionally that has detached her from her personal power, as I was talking about earlier, or has detached her from her sexual energy through any bad sexual experiences or through an upbringing that where sex is thought to be as a bad thing and is repressed, or other emotions held in that part of the body. So you want to look at that. So the first thing really is to look at see if you can understand the causes of the problem, and then address those causes. Then, as far as remedies go, well, it'd be interesting to know more. It'd be interesting to know what is happening with her menstrual cycle and also what is happening with her periods, to know whether there's signs there of there being excess in the body or interruptions. So you're saying she took hormones in the past to get pregnant. This may also have overstimulated. Yep, that's true. Then to eat a clean plant-based diet and to eat some particular foods which are more cleansing. So among foods which are more cleansing, pungent foods, pungent root vegetables often have a more cleansing effect. So using quite a lot of root ginger in cooking. Also traditionally daikon or mooli, long white radish, is has a cleansing effect. So for the uterus, want to cook it in a more yang way, as like long steaming it, or nashimi, if you know nashimi recipe, or using dried daikon, which is a traditional Japanese food, which goes down and then has a melting effect. So making dried daikon dishes, which you could look up in some macrobiotic books, or email me. Using shiitake mushrooms, keeping salt in one's diet low. Okay to use some, but too much salt holds excess in the body. Using hatomugi, or Job's tears, a form of barley, or if one can't get that, just using pot barley to make soups and as a grain. Has a kind of mildly dissolving effect. Also using sea vegetables, especially frondy sea vegetables like wakame, dulse, arame as well, can also help discharge from the body. So one wants to aim to really kind of, you could say, clean that part of the body, and then also get a good energy flow through that part of the body. Through shifting emotions, through physical exercise, especially exercise with the legs. So I hope that gives you a few things to work with, Christo. So it's also interesting, your question, because how do we approach different kind of illnesses and problems? What Western medicine tries to do is to find a cure. So recently I read that they're trying to find a new avenue to find a cure for type 2 diabetes, and I'm thinking, oh no. What they're trying to find basically is a drug or a chemical which is going to reverse it. Then in the alternative world, often we think, okay, well, what's a more natural remedy? What's a kind of supplement or a more natural remedy that we can take that might help? But really what we want to do, if we really want to heal a health problem, is we've got to want to think about what is the cause. That's the first thing you want to find out. Sometimes that's easy to work out, sometimes it's not easy, and that's where Oriental medicine and getting help from people with more experience can be really helpful. And as I say, problems can be caused by food, emotions, lifestyle, negative thoughts, stress, a whole bunch of different things. And sometimes you have to be like a detective to work out, well, what are the causes in this person? And then change the course. That's the most healing and often the most effective way of healing entrenched body conditions, is change the course, whichever level they're on, and then start thinking about particularly helpful foods or remedies or meditations or supplements or other things. Yeah, so that's, I feel, is the most effective approach. And Amal, so recommendations for polycystitis. I wonder if you mean polycystic ovaries. I'm kind of guessing. Really what I've been talking about is deep cleansing in the body, and these to really have an effect on things like the ovaries and the uterus and the prostate really can take time. In Oriental medicine and naturopathy and other forms of medicine, they feel that when there's an imbalance, when there's something going wrong in something unhealthy in a person's life, then often it starts having more superficial effects, maybe in the skin, maybe in the sinuses, maybe in the gums, maybe in the external genitalia, feet, hands, etc. And then if we keep going with whatever imbalance or unhealthy thing it is, then it gradually goes deeper into deeper tissues, and then eventually it starts reaching the heart, the pancreas, the liver, the reproductive organs, the endocrine glands, the nervous system, the deep organs in the body. So when we get problems in these deeper organs, generally those problems have been developing for several years or many years or even decades. So that means they take longer to undo. Some mild skin problems can clear up in days or weeks. Sometimes some sinus problems, some blocked sinuses and mucus problems might clear up in weeks or a few months. These deeper problems in the body can take months or sometimes years, and I'm really working quite hard at it. So I have seen people heal themselves of polycystic ovaries. They've really gone for macrobiotics and being physically active. I remember one student we had, she also gave birth to several children. At first, it was, I seem to remember I think she was infertile because of the polycystic condition, and she became fertile. And actually, for a woman, having babies is a healthy thing, because in some sense, this is a way of getting rid of excess in the body, because a baby is very hungry for nutrients and tends to suck up any excess kind of nutrients in the body. So I think that was also helpful. And Nelly, you're saying you have endometriosis, and when you're on your very painful day, you really miss the strength of your uterus area. That makes you feel very weak. How can I deal with the lack of support in that area during those days? A couple of things you could try. One thing is a compress using some heat. Heat kind of brings energy, brings chi into the body. You could try a hot water bottle. Something that has a deeper effect is a salt pack. And to make a salt pack, you need to buy, if possible, coarse sea salt. It comes in quite big grains, rather than the fine sea salt that we use for cooking. So go to a food shop or a chemist, sometimes sells coarse sea salt. You put about 3/4 of a kilo or even a kilo in a dry frying pan, and you put it on a high heat, and you keep turning it over until it starts popping. When it starts popping, you know it's hot. You then put it in the middle of an old towel or thick tea towel, and you wrap it up. You wrap it up this way and this way and this way and this way, because the salt is very hot and it will burn your skin. And then you tie it up with a strong elastic band or a string or tape. And that really gives out a deep heat. Don't put it straight on your skin. It's probably too hot to start off with, so you put it through several layers of clothing. Put a towel or a blanket or something on top to keep the heat in. So that heat, putting that over your uterus, may well help. The other thing that you could do is to get the chi moving in that area using your breath by doing some abdominal breathing. This is something I've taught in a lot of classes. Maybe I'll just demonstrate briefly. So if you want to try this, so to really do it properly, you can't have a tight belt on. So find your navel, then put your hand below your navel, really on your lower belly. So this is over the uterus or the prostate. It's a little bit low down in men. And then we're going to breathe, because wherever we take our breath to, that is encouraging the chi and the blood and the lymph to flow in that area. So we could breathe with our chest. And not our abdomens, but in this case what we want to do is keep our chest relatively still and breathe with our lower abdomen. So as we breathe in, the lower abdomen comes out, and then to breathe out, we gently squeeze our tummy muscles, and then take a breath in and really blow this place up as much as possible. And out. And then breathing in and using your mind to imagine the chi coming down into this place. And out. If you're feeling a lot of tension in this place, what you can do is to breathe in, bring the chi in here, and then as you breathe out, push that chi down your legs and out through your feet. Bring chi in. Push the chi out. Bring chi in. Push chi out. So very important you're using your mind, because our mind can help direct the chi. And the more you practice this, the better you can get at moving chi through your uterus. And the same, it can be helpful for prostate problems as well. And what we're wanting is to get a good energy flow going through that area. So you may find that helpful at dispersing some of the pain. The first few breaths, you may find that the pain increases a little bit because you're bringing additional ki in there. But then that's when really pushing that ki out, down your legs and out through your feet can be helpful. So why don't you try those things, Nelly? Also, really a dietary approach can be really very helpful as well. And if you want some help with that, then please get in touch, and I give online consultations, and I'll be very happy to help. So Christel, you're saying thanks, and Amal, what causes epilepsy? I think epilepsy is quite complicated. There's a number of kind of different forms and so on. In macrobiotics, it's considered to be a more yin problem. We eat more yin foods, which come up the body, as I was describing before, and creates more pressure in the head, and that pressure in the head can then affect the nerve impulses and bring on epilepsy. So I've certainly seen a few people who, I'm just trying to think of anyone that I've counselled. I've certainly known other people who've been helped with macrobiotics to reduce their epilepsy. Again, it's in the nervous system. It can be a difficult problem to turn around, but I've seen several people who've really helped reduce their epilepsy through reducing those strong yin foods, sugary foods, alcohol, coffee, Pepsi Cola, soft drinks with a lot of sugar in, etc. And eat a more grounding plant-based diet. I've seen get some help. With these kind of more deep, serious, more serious problems, really recommend seeing somebody to give some more detailed advice, because that's likely to be much more effective. For example, if one is suffering from a problem that is caused by strong yin foods, then it might be one thinks, okay, well, I'm going to stop drinking coffee, I'm going to stop drinking alcohol, I'm going to stop drinking sugar, or stop eating sugar, because those widely known as not being very healthy. But maybe one goes on drinking fruit juices or eating bananas, and those keep triggering the problem. So it's helpful. Or maybe one goes on eating tomatoes and nightshade vegetables, which contribute to certain problems like rheumatoid arthritis and possibly epilepsy. So it's useful to get some advice from someone who can really take a very thorough look at your health and your diet, and give you very specific recommendations. And that's likely to have a faster healing effect. So Nelly, the question, is the salt only for heat, or also because of the salt itself? It's really just because the salt can hold a lot of heat. And deep heat can heal certain or help certain symptoms, especially symptoms which are associated with coldness or emptiness of ki. Also with muscle, anywhere with muscle in tension or tension or cramps. So it can be very useful for Period pains, putting it on the tummy when the muscles are cramping, or on the back, the lower back or sacrum. It can be useful if you're having pains in your stomach or your intestines. It can be useful if you've got a lot of tension in different parts of the body. It can be useful on if you've had a knee injury, or just you've hurt your knee, the knee is painful, which very often is from a lack of qi. The only thing I'd say is that don't use it on where there's a lot of heat. So if you've got, for example, a knee injury which is hot and inflamed, it's alright if it's swollen. It can be swollen and cold and really enjoy the heat. But if anything is hot, don't put a salt pack on it. Usually you'll know, because if you have a more cold, empty condition and you put a salt pack on, it will just feel really, really nice. If you put a salt pack on something and it really doesn't feel good, then trust that and take it off. Don't do it because someone said to me or anybody else, or a book has said that it would be helpful. If it doesn't feel good, then don't use it. And you might even consider using the opposite, which is a cold compress, because where there's too much heat, then a cold compress can take some of that heat out, and that may well help reduce symptoms. So, a hot headache, a burning inflammation in your gum or a tooth, for example, then a cold compress could be useful. I would just say be a little bit careful of the word inflammation. These days, the word inflammation is really bandied about. I've got a pain here. Oh, it must be inflamed. This is happening. Yeah, I've got an inflammation here. I've got an inflammation there. Okay, inflammation is a common thing in the body, but don't jump to the conclusion that something is an inflammation and therefore needs a cold compress. Because, yeah, I feel, what I see is people using inflammation to describe symptoms where I really don't think there is inflammation. Amal, and you're asking what causes hair to grow on the face. So I think you were asking about polycystic ovaries before. So, several different things. Several different things can influence hair growth. One thing is just our genes. Some people are kind of programmed to have more body hair than others. Some people have thick eyebrows. Some people thin eyebrows, etc. In general, eating more animal protein can increase hairiness on the body. I know for me that if I'm eating quite a bit of animal food, my beard grows faster and thicker, and if I eat more or less vegan for a while, then I get it grows slower. Don't have to shave quite so often. It's quite noticeable. So that could be another factor. And then with polycystic ovary syndrome, one of the common symptoms of that is to have some quite strong hair growth, particularly dark hairs on the face, which is because for some reason, I can't quite remember the reason, but the ovaries start producing more testosterone. Actually, the female body does produce some testosterone. The male body, I think, does produce some estrogen, but just not very much. So for some reason, the ovaries start producing more testosterone, and then that increases the amount of facial hair, which I know if there's a lot, can cause people some problem. Something else you may see sometimes is a lot of very fine hair, which can come more from eating a lot of dairy food, especially cheese and other dairy foods. Sometimes you see people with like blonde hair, just really, or women with a lot of blonde hair just all over their face. If we eat excess meat, we tend to get more dark hairs. That may be in general, or that may be just particular, one or two strong hairs Sometimes in older women and men, you get like single hairs which just grow incredibly fast. Like within about a week, they're about a centimetre long, and sometimes people pluck them out. So that's happening because of excess protein, especially animal protein, in the body. So I hope that answers your question, Amal. Marianne, thanks for the info on the salt. I have an old knee injury and arthritis. I'm going to try the salt and heat. Yeah, do. Particularly when we've had injuries, there's a physical injury, and very often there's an energetic injury as well. So there's not enough energy in that place, and this is why energy medicine, such as shiatsu, acupuncture, Reiki, etc., can really help heal injuries, because if we get more ki in there, then there's more energy for the normal functioning of the tissue. If there's a lack of ki, then tendons and muscles can be weak, and then we use them a little bit and they start complaining, etc. So as long as your knee doesn't feel hot or look red, then yeah, try the salt pack. And the salt pack, it can stay hot for anything 3/4 of an hour, even an hour, if you put a thick towel over it, or a rug or a blanket or something on top to keep the heat in. Yep, so try it and see how it feels. Also learning some Doin, some self shiatsu, some energy work. If it's on the, I think the most common place people get knee problems is on the inside of the knee, and this is where the spleen meridian comes down. It goes through around this side, the inside of the kneecap, down just off the shin bone down here, and the spleen brings a lot of energy into the front of the knee. So if our spleen energy, which in Oriental medicine, the spleen is also associated with the pancreas, and it's associated with nourishment and digestion as well, and our emotional ability to take in nourishment. So if this meridian becomes low, then we become more susceptible to injuries or pains on the inside of the knee. And then learning to give some Doin, or you could say acupressure, down the spleen meridian, all the way down the leg and into the foot, might well help. And do it on the non-injured side as well, because if we do it on one side of the body, it will help increase it on the other side. Or you could visit an acupuncturist or a shiatsu therapist, and hopefully quite soon, once the lockdown is being lifted, see whether that may well be able to give you some help as well. Then another whole subject is how to strengthen your spleen energy, which is maybe a little bit too big to go in right now, but if you've got questions about that, then we could talk about that. So Amal, is a plant-based diet similar to a macrobiotic diet? So the term plant-based diet has really just started being used really in the last 5 or 10 years, and it's fairly loose in what it means. Basically, what it means is eating maybe 90% plant foods or more, and the other 10% might be fish, it might be eggs, it might be dairy, it could be all kinds of different things. And also, there's not a lot of discrimination about what kind of plant foods one's eating. One might be eating local fruits, and one might be eating tons of bananas. One might be eating loads of coconut sugar. So it's a very kind of broad definition. Is likely to be healthier, but can be pretty unhealthy. So usually the macrobiotic diet is well, practically always it's plant-based. It's based around eating more whole grains, beans, vegetables, seeds, nuts, fruits, etc. So macrobiotics is a plant-based diet. Some people choose to to eat a vegan macrobiotic diet or a vegan plant-based diet. But with macrobiotics, we use some additional principles. So we use the principle of eating more foods from our own climate. You could say more local foods, not eating a lot of tropical fruits and vegetables and foods. Eating mostly in season. So we don't eat tons of strawberries all through the winter. We eat strawberries right now. They're all ripening in my garden. So you have a strawberry season. You eat salad vegetables more in the summer, and in the winter you eat more root vegetables and greens because they're more warming for the body and they help keep us warm and healthy in the winter. So we eat seasonally, and we also make a balance between yin and yang foods. Actually, if we're eating whole foods locally and seasonally, we will be eating quite a good yin-yang balance. But also we want to balance yin and yang. So for example, we don't eat much in the way of sugar, we don't eat much in the way of, well, coffee is more of a tropical food anyway, but we don't eat refined sugar, for example, which we could make from British or European sugar beet, but we don't because it has too strong a yin effect on the body. Instead we eat beetroot and carrots and parsnips and sweet vegetables to give us a more natural and healthy sweetness. So I hope that explains it. The plant-based diet is like a very general term. Macrobiotic diet is a plant-based diet, but uses various other principles to really make the diet a lot more healthy. And Amal, you're asking, can we eat nuts and seeds every day? Certainly seeds, I think, quite easily digested, contain omegas, omega-3s, some useful oils. Nuts we have to be a little bit more careful of. In general, if we're in good health, eating some nuts is fine. I think not overeating them. Some people I've met have heard that nuts have a lot of protein in and eat a lot of nuts and then start finding they have digestive problems because raw nuts are hard and they're really quite difficult to digest. You need to chew them very well to break them down in the mouth first. Also, if one has a condition of excess fats in the body, as we've been talking about a bit this evening, and one's wanting to discharge those old fats, then it's good to not eat much in the way of nuts because nuts are quite fatty, and also to definitely avoid nut butters, peanut butter, hazelnut butter, cashew butter, etc., because they're quite fatty and can create excess in the body. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Amal. So we've been going nearly an hour, so I wonder if you have any more questions. So while I'm just waiting to see if you have more questions, I'm going to say that on a few things, if you want to study more, on July the 3rd we're actually going to have our first class here at the school on men's health, how to avoid prostate, etc. problems, and or how to heal them if one does develop them, for a small group of men where we can maintain social distancing. So if it seems like there's many women here, but if there are any men listening and you want to learn more about how to keep your prostate healthy and keep peeing, then that would be a good day. So details on the website. Apart from that, I'm finishing, I'm kind of in the middle of some online courses which are going to come to an end in the next weeks. So in July we're going to be bringing out more online courses starting from September onwards, also cooking classes, more plant-based eating, We're probably going to start an online, continue to have online cooking classes, which are very useful in how to make a plant-based macrobiotic diet really healthy and tasty and enjoyable, and how to feed children and husbands and partners and so on as well. Plus a range of other classes. So next month, do check that out. If you want to receive information on upcoming classes, then do go onto our website, top right-hand corner of the homepage. You can join our mailing list, and then we send out once a month. We send out an update on upcoming courses to make sure that you hear about them. And Heather, you're asking about tahini. It's not as fatty, but we still need to be a little careful with tahini. What fascinates me is that whereas Western nutrition looks at the constituents of foods, which of course is interesting and it can be very helpful, what it often doesn't look at is the nature of the foods. So, and what I find very interesting is that eating sesame seeds has a different effect on the body to eating tahini. So from a logical point of view, you think that would be exactly the same. But because the tahini is processed, it's more quickly broken down in the body. And what the body likes is slow foods, whole grains, whole beans, whole seeds, and they take time to break down, and then they're just slowly released from the small intestine into the blood. The liver gradually processes them, and the blood and the whole body likes that slow release of sugars, oils, fats, salts, minerals, vitamins, etc. What it doesn't, and that's what we've evolved to eat over millions of years, is to eat whole foods. When we process foods, we're breaking them down so they're more quickly absorbed. So this is why sugar is so bad. Because it very quickly goes into the bloodstream, and then we get a spike in blood sugar levels, stresses the pancreas, has to produce a lot more insulin, as well as negatively affecting the body cells and producing insulin resistance, etc. Fine to use a little bit of tahini. If we're really trying to cleanse, then I would say don't use it for a while. Or just use it where you're mixing it with other foods, because this makes a real difference, as well as how we combine foods. So for example, if you use tahini to make hummus, that fattiness is mixed with the other ingredients, including lemon juice, which has a sour taste, which helps break down the fats. I've just had a message that Facebook's having trouble playing this video, so I'm going to go on talking and hope that you're still hearing, and then maybe we'll finish in a couple of minutes. So good to mix the tahini, making some hummus, maybe making a dressing, mixing it with some vinegar, lemon juice, a little bit of salt or shoyu or white miso or something like that, and then it's going to be, it's less likely to cause problems. I know if I eat too much neat tahini, I quite quickly get some little spots coming up. Definitely for my body it's too much. So yeah, we need to be a little bit careful with tahini. And Amal, do we eat yin to yang or opposite? Yeah, interesting question. So if our stomach is really tight, it can be useful to have something a little bit yin at the beginning of a meal. You might have an aperitif, a little bit of alcohol, or sometimes a little bit of melon is served at the beginning of the meal. A little bit of yin can relax the stomach and stimulate the appetite. But in general, after that, it's good to eat from yang to yin. I mean, this isn't like, desperately important. It can be quite important if people have digestive problems. because yang foods want to go down and yin foods want to go up. So if we eat in our meal, we maybe start off with a slightly more salty soup, and then we eat our grains, our beans, our root vegetables, and then we eat our greens, and then our salad. Then in the stomach, the yang foods go to the bottom, the yin foods can stay on the top, and that's quite harmonious. If we eat the yin foods first and then the yang foods, then it all has to move around. Personally, I've been practicing that for ages, and it's just become a habit, and I find my digestion's good. I shall have to try the opposite sometime and see what happens. And then maybe after your main course, you have a little break, and then you have your fruit or some kind of dessert. And that can definitely be good to separate it from the main course, because eating a lot of fruit can slow down digestion of proteins and fats in the stomach. So Dave, thanks for getting back. So I take it that you're seeing me okay. It'd be nice if you could confirm that. Maybe that would be good if that's the case, and it's just my screen that's gone. So Leah, do you have any nutritional suggestions on breast cysts? So really, as I was saying earlier on this evening, you've got to eat what some people might describe as a clean diet, as a diet that doesn't have any excess in it. So really stop dairy foods, stop oily foods, stop nut butters. Eat primarily whole grains, brown rice, long grain, short grain, quinoa, barley, buckwheat, etc. Not much flour, not much bread, pastry, cakes, maybe a little bit of good quality noodles, but not a lot. Then eat beans and lentils and maybe some white fish if you eat fish. Eat good variety of vegetables, seeds, fruits, sea vegetables, soups, etc. A little bit of cooked fruit in desserts, but really stay away from the dairy foods and the oily foods and the processed foods and the chocolate and all of those kind of things, so your body can cleanse. And it could take a little time, maybe a few months or something to really kick in and start having a stronger effect, but that would be a good way to reduce or stop having regular breast cysts. Again, as I was saying earlier, I'm really happy to help. Just in general, if anybody wants to have a 5-minute chat on the phone, I'm always happy. Or if you want more detailed advice, then I do give online consultations, and quite soon, hopefully, in-person consultations to give more detailed, specific advice for things like that. Heather, thank you. You can see me. Dave, you can see me too. Okay, that's great. So it's just my screen that's gone down, which is good. Okay, been going an hour, so unless a question pops up in the next few seconds, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. I hope it's been useful. And I will be here again at 8:40 next Tuesday evening. So if you have more questions, more things you want to find out, then please come along. And thank you for all your good questions tonight. Yep, I hope that's been useful and interesting for you. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to finish there.